What's going on, everybody? Can y'all hear me? Awesome. Hey, I'm super excited to be here. Last year was my very first landscape summit, and to be able to speak in front of a group of just amazingly talented business owners and employees, I'm truly honored. Anybody in this room could be up here and say something for 30 minutes, and we would all get impact out of it. I feel slightly undeserving, but I'm just super blessed and honored to be here in front of all you guys, so thank you for that. Mike asked me to speak on the road from 200,000 to 800,000 in annual revenue. And before I do that, I also just want to give Mike Andes and his team a huge thanks. The information that he shares with us on YouTube, yeah, it's deserving. It's very selfless, the information he shares to his competitors. Let's just call it what it is. It's just super selfless, and we thank you, Mike and the team. All right, a little bit about our company. In 2020, I started this as a solo operator. My wife was gracious enough to let me use the back of her 2011 rusted up Ford Focus. I had a 21-inch push mower and an electric weed eater and electric leaf blower. Both of those batteries died on the first property. Borrowed the customer's broom, broke the broom, my first call back, first day. 2020, super humble beginnings. I was also with a full-time sales job. But now transferring up to present day, we're projected to do $825,000 in revenue this year, and then next year we're starting our second location. So the guy third to the right, his name is Eddie. He's going to be our general manager. There he is right there. He'll be our general manager of our second location next year in Georgetown, Texas. And the guy to the far left, his name is Dylan. He's my brother-in-law, and he is the blood, sweat, and just work ethic behind this company. Couldn't do it without him, so thank you to you too. So I was torn on whether I should create an example company and say this is the steps A through Z on how to go from 200,000 to 800,000. However, I lean more towards just providing some core principles on just some foundational variables that you need to focus on in probably any business. I'm not a $10 million a year company by any means, but I would imagine that mastering these 5 variables would be beneficial to any size company, especially in the home service business. So to make it as memorable as possible, I use the acronym SCALE. All right, to provide some context, I first want to talk about what a 200,000 a year company looks like, and this is pretty similar to what our company looked like at 200,000. So to cover some assumptions first, in our market we have a 9-month peak season. Just for easy math purposes, let's assume that 80% of that revenue is made throughout your peak season, and your pricing is not dialed in at a 200,000 a year company, and you certainly, at least for us, we did not schedule off of budgeted hours. So it was really a crapshoot. We're like, we think we can get 21 lawns done today. Our average price per visit was 45, and that's kind of what we were at a 200,000 a year company. So the biggest struggle for us as a 200,000 a year company, and granted, Dylan was not with me at this stage, so my biggest struggle was time management. Do we have any 200,000 a year companies in here at all? Around there? So you guys can completely relate where you're wearing every single hat. You're doing the sales, you're doing fulfillment. When you get home in the afternoon, your wife is just wanting to hang out with you, but you're like, I have to respond to emails and invoices and all of that. So the biggest focus or the biggest struggles at a 200,000 a year company is time management, and your primary focus is sales and fulfillment, because you want to fill your schedule as fast as possible, and you want to fulfill on those services as fast as possible. This is just some quick math that I did, assuming 80% of revenue is made in your peak season. You can kind of read through that. That's pretty much what we look like at a 200,000 a year company. At an 800,000 a year company, this is pretty much what we look like currently. We run an extremely lean operations, and we're trying to expand, kind of get some more room in our schedule for Dylan and myself next year. But our biggest struggle is finding reliable labor. We actually have an amazing team. We have 5 employees other than Dylan and myself, and they're super reliable, but outside of them, it's hard to find a plethora of employees for us to deploy and send to customers' properties. Our primary focus right now is marketing and decreasing attrition. The reason we're focusing so heavily on marketing is because leading up to 800,000, we've had God's favor on our company, and a lot of it was word of mouth. But as we open up our second location, we wanted to really dial in our customer acquisition cost and all those KPIs that Dan Ralph was talking about yesterday. Looking at our numbers, the beginning of this year, we lost like 98 customers going through spring rush. So our primary focus is to decrease attrition as we go into next year. We played heavy offense leading up to 800,000, and now we just got to play defense and kind of retain our customers. By God's grace, we still have around 470 customers. So some assumptions is the owner is the estimator and also covers down in the field as needed, kind of where we're at. Your labor rate is identified, and you operate off of budgeted hours. So if you take 80% of revenue in your peak season and you're 800,000 your company, that means you're roughly making around 71,000 a month in revenue. And if you break that down into what each crew can complete for you, we need about 3.24 crews. And that 0.24 is pretty much the owner and the estimator and also covering down as needed. So to jump into this acronym, the S in scale stands for sales systems. So a sales system is what Mike was talking about yesterday, is when you have a lead captured and turning that into a paying customer. So that's the sales system that I'm talking about. You can also have an upsell system, but what I'm primarily focusing on here is the process of turning a lead into a paying customer. What you want to do leading from 200,000 to 800,000 is you want to do A/B testing for your sales system. So what does that look like if you're doing a satellite image and measuring a property that way, and then you're emailing and texting a customer and then following up after a few days? That could be a system. Or are you doing driving to the customer's property saying, I think this is 5,000 square feet, and wasting that time in driving and insurance and overhead for that vehicle, and then also giving that customer a phone call and trying to close them over the phone? That's another sales system that you could do. What I would recommend is, I think everyone probably Q2 is where the demand is the highest, so I would split Q2 in half, test a sales system. You can simultaneously test them, but you can test a sales system the first half of Q2, test a different sales system the second half of Q2. Whatever sales system gives you the best close rate and conversion rate, that's going to be the sales system that you want to move forward. The reason why this is so important is because if you do not have a sales system that is completely dialed in and that is not your constant, you can never manipulate your business accurately. What I mean by that, and we'll use this example of a teeter-totter, that's where we call it in Michigan, where I'm originally from. Your sales system is going to be your fulcrum. So if that's a constant, you can accurately predict, hey, if I raise my prices, my close ratio is going to drop. And vice versa, if I decrease my prices, my close ratio is going to increase. You can only accurately say that as if you have a dialed-in sales system and it is the exact same throughout every single estimate you send out. Your verbiage is the same. Your last line in your email or your last line in your sales script to kind of put the pressure on the customer, that's the same. You can only manipulate your business if your sales system is the same. Talking about sales system, I highly recommend that you leverage technology. We first started off with using Google Sheets. I don't recommend that. I also recommend that you do measure all the properties via satellite. It could save up to 30 minutes per lawn mowing estimate, and that adds up when you're scaling from 200,000 to 800,000. All right, the C in scale stands for cash flow. So when I first started off, I thought cash flow and profit were the same thing, and they are not. I have a little ADD. Do I have any other ADD people in here with me? Let's go. I'm an extremely visual learner, so it took me a little bit to create this diagram, but I truly believe that if you can take a photo of this diagram and really understand each threshold, it's going to help your business out, especially going from 200 to 800, and I would imagine $1 million plus too. So let's take a look at it. So up in the top left corner, you have the entire roll of the money. That's as much money as you can possibly make, and Jeff Bezos has taken half of it. All the money going into that first funnel is the activities you are taking to attract customers into your business. That first funnel is your business. Now, threshold A is going to be your earning capacity. So let's assume that money is not an option, and you can attract $10 million worth of business coming into your company, but you only have one truck and 2 employees and a 21-inch push mower. You can only earn as much as that one truck, 2 employees, and 21-inch push mower will make you. So that's why A is a threshold. Now, when those dollar signs are passing through threshold A, that is when you have earned that revenue. You've completed that service. You've sent the invoice to the customer. That money is owed to you. Now, here's where cash flow and profit are not the same. Because just because you send an invoice does not mean that you have the money in your bank account. So that reason, or the second funnel is going to be your earned revenue. And the reason why all the money doesn't flow from A directly through B is because you have cards that are being declined, you have accounts receivable, you have people paying in checks, the check flew away in the wind, and then you have to handle that with the customer. So you want to have systems dialed in to where the money going from A through B is extremely dialed in as possible. Your threshold C is your cash on hand, and then the threshold D is where all your money goes to die. So that's all the bills going out each month, equipment fixes, debt payments. Anytime money leaves your bank account or leaves your hand, it's going out of threshold D. Now, there's a few different ways that you can manipulate this diagram to help your business, and we will cover that right now. So the ideal scenario is to use systems to improve threshold B. What does that look like? And Copilot's doing a great job at this, is they require a card on file to even get on the schedule. That helps decrease the amount of customers that are going to have accounts receivable. You can also say that if you have deposit thresholds. So for us, any job over $1,000, we require a 50% deposit, and we don't care if that's going to be booked out 6 months. We're going to take that before we put you on our schedule. And also, we're going to require a card on file, because we've been in the situation where we've earned the money, but it's just sitting there, and we kind of have to mark it as bad debt. So the ideal scenario is to use systems to increase threshold B. Before I move any further, the ultimate ideal scenario is you want to make threshold A as wide as possible, threshold B as wide as possible, and threshold D as tiny as possible. Because if you can complete those 3 tasks, your threshold C is going to increase exponentially. Another ideal scenario is you want to use C to increase A. So you want to use your cash on hand to increase your earning capacity. That looks like buying more trucks debt-free. That looks like getting the most efficient mowing set up on your property, ramp racks instead of enclosed trailers. I know Mike was throwing a little jab at that earlier. That looks like increasing your base pay to your employees, implementing a P4P software. You want to use the cash on hand to increase your earning capacity because you have attracted all this money that is sitting there. And if you can't fulfill all of that money, you're really only hurting your business if your goal is to grow. So an ideal scenario is to use your cash on hand to increase your earning capacity. Now, Mike talks a lot about growth mode and profit mode, and he does say that growth mode sucks cash. And since I'm such a visual person, I just have to put it like Van Gogh right in front of me. So growth mode uses C and D to increase A. So it uses your cash on hand and uses debt to increase your earning capacity. What that does is it increases the threshold D. So even though you have an opportunity to bring in more money is going out each month. So that's what growth mode is it's using the cash you have and also cash that you're borrowing to increase the opportunity to earn more. Profit mode uses C to decrease D. So it uses your cash on hand to decrease your cash outflow. That looks like paying off debt. That looks like implementing systems to ensure that your maintenance or your equipment is being maintained. You want to make sure that you can decrease the threshold of cash leaving your account every single month so that ultimately your C can increase, and that only helps you, pursue other opportunities like once you get to a certain level. Real estate investing, I know they're talking about, don't focus on that. We haven't focused on that yet, but having cash on hand gives you any opportunity that you guys see fit. All right, the A in scale stands for asset management. So let's assume a company, they have financed a lawnmower, and that lawnmower costs them $300 a month. Let's say worst case scenario, they only use that lawnmower once that month. Effectively, it costs that company $300 to use that lawnmower. If the price you've received from that customer is $50, you've already lost $250 on the job. Customer B also financed a lawnmower for $300, but they use it 300 times in that month. Effectively, it costs them $1 to use that lawnmower. This is the importance of asset management. It looks a little bit different at a $200,000 a year company compared to an $800,000 a year company. $200,000 a year company, I would recommend that if all your crews are out, I say all your crews, it's probably just you and another guy or girl. But if you guys are leaving for the day, take a look at what equipment you're leaving behind. Because if you have a financed aerator or if you have a financed stand-on mower and it's just sitting there for the day, it is wasted money. The biggest asset not on your balance sheet is your employees. So if that can all be agreed upon, the mower is an asset and your employee is an asset. You wouldn't pay your employee to sit in your shop and sleep all day, so you shouldn't pay your equipment to sit in your shop and sleep all day. Granted, that is only for a $200,000-a-year company. At an $800,000-a-year company and plus, it's going to be super important that you do have some backup equipment, because for us, we're around 470 customers. We're doing around 70 to 80 lawns a day. And so if we have one of our crucial pieces of equipment go down, we can't really afford to push off 20, 30 lawns a day, whatever that crew would be doing. So it is important to have assets strategically in place to cover down. Granted, you don't want a brand new 36-inch Skag sitting there that you spent $8,000 for, whatever the price is. But you do want something that you can quickly use and take and get that handled. All right, the L in SCALE stands for leadership. If you were a veteran serving in the United States military, I'd like for you to raise your hand. All right, keep your hands raised. Thank you, guys. So keep your hands raised if you were a veteran. Now, if you served in the United States Army, I would like for you to lower your hand. All right, everybody who still has their hand raised makes poor decisions. So go Army. All right, I'm just kidding. Thank you guys for your service. So the Army's definition of leadership is the process of influencing people by providing purpose, direction, and motivation while operating to accomplish a shared mission and improve the organization. Now, I know Mike just did a video with St. Laurent, and I saw them earlier, so thanks for coming, guys, and it was a super impactful video. Mike asked the owner of that company what a leader was, and ultimately the answer was if a leader leaves a room and is being followed, that's what a leader is. That is true, but to take it one step further, a leader does provide purpose, direction, and motivation to accomplish a shared mission and improve the organization. The fruit of a good leader is if your employee wants, the employee should want the company to win, and they realize that they are going to win also. So if the company wins, and if the owner of the company wins, the owner is a blessing to their employees and shares those rewards and gives them bonuses and brings them to conferences like this. So if you are an employee sitting in this room, I would take a look at your boss and start calling them a leader because they care about you. All right, so some characteristics of a leader is you're first in and last out. So if you guys start at 7:30, be there at 6:30, get some equipment ready, do whatever. Make sure that you're the first person that your employees see, and then that you're the last face that they see when they leave for the day. Because if they are coming in and they don't see you at first in the day or last of the day, even though you're doing a million things, they're going to think that you're taking advantage of them. And that's simply not the case, but it's hard for them to realize that. So they need to see you first, and they need to see you last. An unfortunate characteristic about a good leader is sometimes you have to suffer in silence. What that doesn't mean is you need to have a support system at home, and you need to have a support system with some friends where you can offload all of your stresses, but you don't want to offload those on your employees. One of my favorite quotes is, you don't want to be the sour apple to your own tree. So don't come into your company and offload all your worries and all your stresses on your employees, because when they're having a bad day and they need to rely on somebody, they can't come to you because you're using them as your shoulder to cry on, for lack of better words. So unfortunately, sometimes you have to suffer in silence, but you also still need a community to support you. If you don't lead your company, somebody else will. And if somebody else leads your company, you don't have any control where it's going. You don't have control of the culture. So you have to be sure that you're a good leader. And a leader, to the next point, you want to be worthy of being followed. So if you guys want to read a great book on who a good leader is, I would really recommend that you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Poorly led companies will not succeed. There's a saying where if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. And so if you want to have a group that goes far, and I think Mike is a perfect example of this. I mean, look at all the yellow in this room and look at his staff that supports him like crazy. If you want to go far, you got to go together. And the only way to go together is to build up a team around you and be worthy of being followed. All right. The last letter in this acronym is efficiency. So labor efficiency is the ultimate growth hack to a company. I want to take a look at an example company, and in May of 2023, they paid their employees $17 per hour as an hourly rate. Their labor efficiency was 65%. Their monthly labor revenue was $76,000 and some change, and the total payroll that they paid to their employees was just north of 23,000. Between May and August, they implemented P for P, and they still kept their $17 per hour as their base rate, but now they pay their employees 33% of the labor revenue. This alone has increased their labor efficiency by 10%, so going from 65% to 75%. Their monthly labor revenue has increased by 11,000, and the total payroll has increased by 5,000 and some change. So this is the importance of your labor efficiency. You're like, but I'm paying 5,000 more a month in expenses, and truthfully, you're paying more per month in expenses, which we'll get to on the next slide. But this is what a 10% increase in efficiency can do for your company. So monthly labor revenue did increase by 11,600 and some change. Payroll increased, but your employees earned $4 more per hour. And your variable costs increased, so you're going to pay more in your gas, and you're going to pay more in your credit card processing fees, and that's on average for us around 7%. But that means that you made $5,324 more in net profit. So just by implementing a system to take care of your company and take care of how your employees are being compensated, you as a business owner, your company has made $5,000 more per month. And so that's the difference just a 10% increase in efficiency can make. So as I wrap up, I would like to ask a question, and I would just appreciate some vulnerability here. Who in this room thinks that they've made it in life? Okay. All right. I love it. Who in this room believes in Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior? So you guys are the ones that have made it in life. Thank you, guys.